wants to explore the spine a little bit, see how it feels today. Arms reaching out in front of you. Let's really energize those arms. Lifting up, rising up gently through that pelvic floor. Close the ribs and relax the shoulders. From there, you're just going to nod your chin to chest, curl the pelvis, create this C curve shape, and bring that shape into the mat. See if you can place yourself into the mat, one vertebra at a time. Inhaling up. Exhaling, bring those arms over the shoulders, nod your chin to chest, and curl into yourself. So really think about pulling the front of the body into that round shape of the back of the body and dive over this imaginary beach ball. And then return to neutral. So we're going to do that about 5 times, giving ourselves the opportunity to get a little bit more movement in every segment in our spine. Nod your chin to chest and blow that air out. Hollow the front of the body down to the back of the body. Lift up and over that imaginary beach ball. And return, rebuilding that spine. Okay, let's keep going. Keep energizing those legs. Reach through those toes. Reach out through the fingertips. And then exhale, nod your chin to chest. Begin curling through the upper spine, mid-spine. Pull that navel back to the lower spine and dive over that beach ball. Take a moment here to feel that tissue stretch in the back body and then restore, rebuild that spine back up to neutral. Let's just do one more. Rolling down. Inhaling and exhaling, bringing those shoulders off the mat, bringing the shoulder blades off the mat and peeling away from the mat, up and over. So we're going to come into the mat and stay there. Tip the pelvis back, hollow that lower belly, soften through the rib cage, the sternum. Take one last stretch. And then just bring those arms down by your side. So we're going to lift one leg at a time up to tabletop and then extend those legs up to the ceiling. We're going to do a reverse rollover. So you're going to tip the pelvis back. Allow the toes to start reaching for the wall behind you. Peel off the mat. We're going to try to separate the legs about hip joint distance apart. Flex the feet, reach those heels. See if you can get your feet down on the floor and then hollow out that belly and see if you can lengthen that spine into the mat. Use your core to place your spine back down into the mat, one segment at a time. Reach those legs out of the hips only as far down towards the floor as we're not arching the spine. So your abdominals are keeping that spine neutral. Close the legs, flex, and up we go again. So almost think about the pelvis curling off the mat. The legs are just kind of coming along for the ride. They're not swinging to help you. Open, flex, see if you can touch. Maybe you're trying to think about keeping those feet on the floor as you roll down. The closer the thighs stay to the front of your body, the more apt you're going to get a stretch through the back of the body. Close point, here we go, up again. Try to avoid swinging, just melt the front of the body into that round shape you're creating in the back of the body and follow your toes behind you. Open, flex, activate those legs. Reach your heels to the wall behind you as you stretch your spine to the wall in front of you. One more time, point. Curl almost into yourself. Don't fight yourself, just let it happen. Open, flex, and reach. Relaxing the shoulders. Okay, you're going to bring one foot down. Let's choose the right leg. Bring it down to the floor. Let's flex that foot and really stand into that right leg. And then just notice the distance between that bottom rib and the top of your pelvis. Try to keep the distance the same between the right and left side. So you're going to cross that right leg. You're going to cross the left leg to the right. Try to keep the right shoulder on the mat. Cross down, around, a little accent on the uptick and stop. Cross down, around, a little oomph on the return and stop. So here we go. We're going to go 8. Inhale around the bottom, exhale around the top. So keep the right leg energized. Keep the shoulders heavy, the neck soft, and then really save that energy for where you need it, which is your powerhouse. Can you keep both halves of the pelvis still and evenly weighted on the mat. We're going to call it one more. Once you get to the top, pause, reassess, and let's go the other way. So out to the left, sweep down, around, cross midline, and to the top. Let's take it up to tempo, out, down, around, and up. You're welcome to flex the foot or softly point the toe. Sometimes it's nice to softly point the toe. It feels like you're creating more length across the front of the leg, opening up the front of that hip joint. And we're practicing pelvic stability. So really deepen through those obliques, your waistlines, to anchor your pelvis and waistlines into the mat. Let's call it 3 more. Relaxing the ribs. 2. Keeping them knit together. And 1 more time. Give that knee a little hug. Pull that knee into your chest as you energize that right leg. Just going to stretch it out a little bit here. Take your right hand on the outside of the left knee and help it across to the right side of the body as you rotate your cervical spine to the left. Now don't force the stretch, just let the body rest into that stretch a little bit. Take a couple breaths here. Maybe each time you exhale, the stretch can increase. You can surrender into a little bit more length there. Really pull the belly into the spine to protect it, especially in rotation. Take that right hand underneath the knee and help it back up. Place that right foot on the mat, slide that leg out, engage that leg, really energize that leg. Pull the right knee in for a hug. Use your arm strength to really find a nice stretch. So what we should be looking for here is length across the front of that left hip joint and a nice stretch into that right hip that's flexed. Try to stay long in that right waistline. The tendency is to hike that hip and twist the pelvis, so kind of reach out through the right sits bone. And when you're ready, bring that right leg up. You're welcome to flex or point, whatever kind of resonates with you today. We're going to cross midline, keep that right shoulder on the mat, really sweep out around to the right and back. Let's do 1 more slow. Right hip stays heavy. Spine does not arch here. Left hip stays heavy and to the top. So let's bring it up to tempo. So when the leg sweeps around the bottom of that imaginary circle that we're creating, try to really deepen the lower abdominals to keep that spine from getting pulled off the mat. And then go back to your breath as if the breath is moving that heavy, lazy leg. Your core has a leg, and the core is pulling that leg up. Try not to let your quadricep take over. 3 more. Still in the pelvis. We're going to move a little bit, but you're just trying not to be sloppy. And reverse out to the right. Sweep down, around, into the top. Let's do 1 more slow. Pay attention to what can serve you here. And here we go for 8. Exhale to the top, stop, and reach out of that hip joint all the way through the foot, whether it's flexed or softly pointed. Does not matter, just energize that leg. As if somebody is gently pulling that leg out of your hip joint. 3. Last 2. And 1 more time. Let's give that knee a nice hug again. Energize that left leg, reach through that heel. Maybe you're warmer, maybe you can get more of a stretch here. Take the left hand on the outside of the knee. Help it across to the left as you look to the right, the opposite direction of the knee. Really narrow those waistlines, pull the navel into the spine to support that spine in rotation. Take a couple breaths here. As you exhale, can you surrender into more of a stretch, more of an opening? Great spine opener stretch here, but you definitely need to take good care. So keep that core tone. 1 more time. Use that hand to help the leg back up. Bring that foot down and then bend your left knee. So let's keep going with a little bit of spine mobility. So let's think about that pelvis. In neutral, you have a little bit of daylight between the lumbar spine and the mat, maybe just for a grape, maybe a little larger. Everybody has different shaped spines. But we're gonna start in neutral, and then you're gonna lift up through that pelvic floor, deepen the obliques and core, and rock that pelvis back. That's gonna lengthen the spine into the mat, and then you're going to release that pelvis back to neutral. So let's just do that a couple times. Notice how the spine feels as it moves into this posterior pelvic position, lengthening the spine, and then restoring to neutral. Are there places that feel a little sticky or not very mobile, not very smooth as far as movement goes? Last two. Pelvic rocks are a great way to hydrate your discs, kind of introduce some blood flow to the spine. Great to do. So let's hold that pelvic tuck or posterior pelvic position. The spine is in its imprint. Make sure your feet are where they need to be for a bridge, so close to the heels, right underneath the knees. Hold that imprint and just keep peeling off the mat, one segment at a time. Use your glutes to open the hips up to the sky, reach the knees energetically over the toes, and just at the top, do a little assessment. Make sure the ribs are closed and they're not lifting to try to help. And then tip the pelvis back, find that imprint energy in space, and roll back into the mat one segment at a time. So we're just gonna do that about 4 times. Most of us are gonna experience a sticky place in the spine. You might feel like you're peeling up in blocks of 3, or there just might be one sticky spot you've had for a long time. You're welcome to pause there and kind of pulse it out if that feels right or appropriate for your spine. Or just imagine that somebody's taking your pelvis and tipping it back and pulling it down away from your ribs, increasing space. Maybe this space will help find more movement. Let's do a couple more. Knees are tracking right over the center of the feet. Notice if the knees are falling in or falling out. Energize the inner and outer thighs to try to track those femur bones out of the center of the hip joint during the whole movement pattern here. One more time. Great. So hopefully the spine is feeling like it's moving a little better. Awesome. Let's find neutral. So your own neutral is when those 2 front hip bones, your ASIS bones, are on the same front plane as your pubic bone. So see if you can find that. You'll probably have a little bit of daylight in that small of your back and your lumbar spine. We're gonna float one leg at a time to tabletop. Did anyone smash that little space, that little mouse house, or were you able to keep a heavy tailbone and maintain that? You're gonna lift your arms up to the sky. Notice if we're just sending all the energy up to the sky, or can you have equal energy? Reach through the fingers, but grow equally heavy down into the shoulders. We're gonna do a little thoracic flexion. So nod your chin to chest and curl up. Maybe we can aim to get off the tip of the shoulder blades and then place yourself back down. So we're going for some flexion in our thoracic spine. Looking right down at your navel at the top. Sometimes gaze matters as far as that neck alignment goes. So we're looking to avoid leaving the head behind or over tucking the chin, okay? Let's add hip and leg extension. So we're gonna reach those legs out to a high diagonal. Hopefully our pelvis and spine didn't change. So as we exhale and reach those legs away from us, you wanna deepen those abdominals so that we don't increase that lumbar arch. You're still aiming to get off the tip of your shoulder blades, supporting the legs from those deep lower abdominals. So you're kind of going into your hundreds prep. Exhale up. Inhale down. Let's call it 2 more. Inhale down. And 1 more time. Hold it. Float your right leg up. You can either hold behind the hamstring or the calf, elbows perhaps wide. You're helping with a little arm strength, pull that leg back, but I want you to also think about the deep abdominals helping to pull that leg back for hip flexion. Back of this leg is pulling that bone to the mat. So let's go for 2 little pulses. 1, a little bit more, 2, and change. 1, maybe there's more, 2. And here we go. 1, 2, and 2, So can your chest stay lifted? That's coming from your upper abdominals. Try to limit the wanting of the head, trying to reach forward and hold everything up. Nod your chin to chest like you're holding a little peach between your chin and your chest, and then bring your energy to wrapping the ribs to hold that chest up. For 5, I'm terrible counter, and 4, usually not to our benefit. It's always a little bit more than a little bit less with my counting. 3, sorry guys. Last 2, and one more time. Both legs reach to the sky. Let's give that cervical spine some support. Let that head be heavy in your hands. But notice, I'm not using my arm strength to press my head forward. Head heavy in hands, zipping up the ribs to come forward. Reach those legs away. 2, 3, and pull those legs back. Pretend you're lengthening those legs out of your deep lower abdominals. Try not to increase that lumbar arch. Try not to flatten that lower back. Keep a heavy tailbone as you pull the legs back. Let's go for 5. How low do you lower the legs? Maybe it's this much. It's up to you. The limiting factor is your ability to keep your pelvis from getting pulled around or shifting, which would change the shape of the spine. And you would know that if you're pressing into the mat and then lifting off the mat with that lower back. That distance between the small of your back and the mat should stay the same. Let's do one more. Good. Bend your knees, bring your hands and head and shoulders into the mat. Bringing your arms out to a T, let's introduce a little bit of rotation into the spine. Again, so we're gonna reach the pelvis over to the right. The legs are kind of coming along for a ride. Pull back through center. Tip the pelvis over to the left, and now try to keep the right shoulder, if not just shoulder blade, on the mat. So it's kind of like the pelvic rotation and the anchoring of the opposite side of the body are competing with each other. Find some equal opposite energy there. To stay heavy in the opposite shoulder, shoulder blade, or rib cage, and really wring out your spine. The deeper the rotation, the more tone you're feeling hugging into the spine to protect that spine. Let's do one more to each side. Come back to center. Let's try with our arms up. So, how far can you go without losing the anchored shoulder on the opposite side of the direction your pelvis is rotating? You should be feeling your obliques here. Lower obliques. Notice if you're twisting out of the hip joint, or is it just really the pelvis rotating and tipping to the left and then to the right. Try to avoid the twisting. One more time to each side. Okay, so I'm going to finish with teaser. Arms up over my shoulders. I'm going to nod my chin to chest and curl up to the tips of my shoulder blade. When I'm almost off that last rib, you guys, that's when I start reaching my legs out. So let's try that again. That's usually a good cue for me. Inhale to prepare. Exhale, nod your chin to chest. The minute I'm almost off that last rib, I start stretching my legs up, out, and peeling off the mat, just like we practiced earlier. And then place yourself back on the mat. One bone at a time. Take a big breath. Exhale, use your breath to compress the front of the body down to the back of the body. Let's do 2 more. Exhale up. You can also, by the way, bring your hands behind your hamstrings and press your legs into your hands. Use a little arm strength to help yourself up. Use a little arm strength to help yourself down. That actually felt harder for me. Wasn't concentrating. One more time. Let's hold this one. Bring your arms out in front of you. Bring your arms out to the side and behind you. Let's draw some hip circles. 8, 7. Again, you're lengthening out of those hips, down through those long legs. We're not poking our belly out into our t-shirt. We're pulling it down away from the t-shirt. I think we got one more. And reverse. Draw a circle. Pull those legs up from the deep lower abdominals as if your core has legs. Close the ribs, but lift the sternum a little bit. Let's call it 3 more. 3 and 2. One more time. Lower one leg at a time. Take a round spine stretch forward. A couple breaths into the back of the body. Feel that back of the body expand as you lift the front of the body up into the spine. Okay, so that was the front of the core series. Tune in for sides and back.